Thank you, Hillary, for those kind words. I am Bernie Spencer. I am the creator and proprietor of the website. That one, called Northern Kentucky News. I describe it as a broad collection of images and text on the history of Northern Kentucky. I take that word broad very seriously. There are old buildings, there are photographs, there are baseball cards, there are paintings, there are samples of pottery, lots of stuff. I cover those 11 counties you see on the right. And our motto is instructive, truthful, and moral, which, as a matter of full disclosure, I stole from a P.T. Barnum circus poster. I'm going to start at the bottom. There's one. I work my way up, leave Boone till last. I'm going to start with what I call links and miscellany, because there is some stuff that just does not fit nicely into a county bucket. Specifically, I'm going to start down here on the river page. I'm not going to do every page. There's 20,000 of them. I'm not going to do them every. But I wanted to show you that graph. That's the 37 flood.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason I think that's just a tremendous piece of information is because you can see the second worst flood ever in '84. You can see the worst flood in 1913. But notice all the other floods. What? Come down. As soon as they breach their highest, they stay for a day, and then they're down. 1937 stayed over a week above the next highest flood. That's in a day when you heated with coal, and coal came on barges, and barges couldn't get through. So it was an ugly time. A more interesting piece on the rivers page. Lots of pictures of the ice in 1917-18, which I'm not going to go into. But the merchant boats. If there was a guy that had a business on Main Street, there was another guy that tried it on a boat going up and down the river. Church, photographer, Bible school, theater, grocery, jeweler, umbrella maker. You probably could make a living making umbrellas in Augusta, but if you stopped in Maysville and then Augusta and then Richmond, you could probably make a living. That's enough for links and miscellany. Let's go to Triple County. Triple County, I would point out to you something you might have of interest. Okay, I got the wrong page. There. A general ledger from a Bedford store in 1853. Now, general ledgers, store ledgers are not rare things. Got any in the library? Yeah. That's not what this is. This is an explanation of a ledger the man found. And he's talking about, why are women buying this? Are they not raising this? Why are they selling this to the store? Why are men buying this? What is it about their lives that caused them to buy these things? I think it's a pretty neat read. Also down in Trimble County, we got lots of flood scenes out of Milton. One of the features of the 37 flood was that a lot of houses were just built on stone foundations, and they're made out of wood. Wood, as we all know, blows. So when the flood comes, your house comes up and down the river. Dayton, Kentucky lost 51 houses in 1937, never to be seen again. And of course, everybody down the river is trying to fish stuff out. This is people in Dayton are trying to fish stuff out, come down from upriver. I read a thing, it's not on the website yet, but I read it a couple of weeks ago about a steamer that was going up and down the river in the flood, trying to figure out if people need food, shelter, clothing. What they said they wanted was rope to hold the houses together. Interesting character interesting character out of Trimble County. There's Harlan Hubbard,
Yep.
who I recommend to your attention, but also Delia Webster. If you don't know Delia, you should probably get acquainted. The petticoat abolitionist. No question, Delia helped a lot of slaves out of Trimble County get across the river. And the men in Trimble County weren't really sure how to deal with that. She was a woman. You didn't treat women the way you treated men, but she was stealing their slaves. If you read about her, you will find out her finances were kind of iffy, and her relationship with men was not easy to understand. Let's go to Pendleton County. Pendleton County is the only county on my site where there are lots and lots of pictures, old postcards of houses in color. Lots of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't have those in Covington or Newport. Why did they exist in Maysville or in Falmouth? No idea. But nice old pictures. The other thing I'm proud of in Pendleton County is Mossville. Who's been to Mossville? Okay. I got 15 pictures of Demossville. It's hard to take 5 and 15 pictures of Demossville.
Yes, it is.
And Owen, I want to go to Gratz. Who's been to Gratz? Viewer. Okay. Down on the Kentucky River in Owen County. Notable for its lead mines. They're played out now, but once upon a time, they produced a lot of lead in Gratz. A little north of Gratz in a little town that there's no evidence of these days called Moxley, and right across the river, on the river in the county. Lead from Gratz was used for bullets in the Revolutionary War.
Oh, wow.
And the War of 1812. And the Mexican-American War and the Civil War, World War I and World War II. So, a significant place in the history of the country. Let's go to New Liberty. New Liberty is on the hill just above Sanders, if that helps. Sanders is on the railroad. Sanders used to be called at one time Liberty. It had about 6 different names over time. They had a hard time to figure out the name of Sanders. But once upon a time it was Liberty. So up the hill is New Liberty. And the only reason I go to New Liberty is so I can tell you how the Christian church got its bell. Sometime after building the church in 1889, Uncle Thomas Gale, a very honorable old gentleman, but not especially known for his religion, donated a bell to the Christian church as he had gotten, quote, damn tired of hearing those Baptists brag about their having a bell and the Christian having none. I would point out to you that the Baptists in New Liberty started a business down on the Kentucky River between 2 creeks called Church of Twins, Big Twin, Little Twin Creek, TWINNS, Twins. And they started in 1801. 1801 is old, boys and girls. Well, in this country anyway. Favorite picture time. I've got several favorite pictures I want to show you. This one's on Market Street in Maysville. Market Street, if you go to Maysville, there's 2 one-way streets, 2nd and 3rd. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And Commerce Street between them, the main one is Market. That's it.
Wow.
I don't know the occasion. I don't know what kind of vehicles. I wish I knew more about that picture. Up the hill from Maysville is a little town called Washington. Everybody been to Washington? I thought they'd get more hands on that. Washington has had at least 5 newspapers that they know before 1820. It was one of the first civilized places in Kentucky. At one time, it was the 4th largest city in Kentucky after Louisville, Lexington, and Paris. Oh, I'm going to show you. Favorite picture time. That's Washington. To me, that looks like every little town in Kentucky in the 1950s. It could be anywhere, not necessarily Washington. The other thing I want to show you in Mason County is Sardis. I'm not going to ask who's been to Sardis. What I want to know is who's even heard of Sardis before just now. 2 people. If you're on the road from Maysville to Cynthiana, and you go the back way, and there's no other way to go, you go through a little town called Sardis. I will tell you that Sardis is one of the saddest, sorriest little places you'll ever want to go. It is decrepit, the buildings are falling down and just waiting to go away. The few houses that are occupied need paint. I got 16 pictures from Sardis. And I value those pictures. Because in Northern Kentucky Views, we can go into pretty much any library and find something for our page. And it's almost always Covington or Newport. That's good, I like that. I get more excited about the smaller towns, the county seats, the Warsaws, the Alexandrias, the Falmouths, the Owentons. But what I really like are Sardis and DeMossville and Gratz. Because they're going away. They're absolutely going away. Know anybody that knows where Devon is lately? Or Limeberg? I refuse to say Oak Brook, I say Limeberg. And in the event somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about, you're in Limeberg, or what used to be Limeberg. Kent County. Favorite picture time. I give you the Bromley Shinny Club. Shinny is a game that, not unlike hockey, where you find a can or a wadded up shirt and play. It's evidently an all-boys game in Bromley. The girls are kind of minding their own business back here. Like most photographs at the time, the photographer is having everybody stare into the sun so the light will be okay. You can see some young men are really excited about having their picture taken. Some are indifferent, and some really would like to go back to his game. The Bromley Shinny Club. I want you to see that font. See that font? See how neatly that's written? I'll get back to it. The other thing that I find interesting in Kenton County, there's lots of good stuff in Erlanger and Ellesmere and Fort Mitchell. Lots of stuff on the railroad in Latonia, the racetrack in Latonia. I think the most fascinating thing is the lagoon. The Ludlow Lagoon, you go through West Covington, you go through Ludlow, and before you cross into Bromley, there used to be a giant lake at the foot of Sleepy Hollow. They had attractions. They had lots of attractions. In the 1912 range, there was a streetcar that left Fountain Square every 2 minutes to go to the lagoon. It was very popular. Because in the cities, you got factories. And when I say factories, I mean 4 or 5 people. But they had to run machines, so they burned coal. Cities was a place where you breathed a lot of coal. So if you get into the outskirts, places like Silver Grove, toward the lagoon, you could breathe clean air. You could take some in the afternoon and drink beer and breathe real air and just have yourself a day. There's the railroad trestle, it's still there. There's the roller coaster, one of the first, if not the first, west of the Appalachians. There's the Motordrome. In 1915, they had motorcycle races at the Motordrome, and one of the motorcycles came out of the Motordrome into the crowd, wrecked, spilled gasoline, hit a lamp pole, which was fueled by gas. A dozen or so people died. The 1913 flood had not been good to the lagoon. Prohibition came, World War I came, and there's just so much any business can stand what's in the lagoon. Going to Grant County next. Where am I going? Grant County. Oh. I'm going to tell you why they call Dry Ridge Dry Ridge. In the event you didn't know. Let's see if I got the right page. I did. Dry Ridge because you can leave Covington as you go up the hill out of Covington on 25, Dixie Highway. You can go all the way to Florence. You can come all the way down to Walton and never cross a creek down to Crittenden, down to Dry Ridge, down to Williamstown, down to Corinth, and well into Scott County before you cross water. They call it the Dry Ridge because it's a dry ridge. It's why the buffalo didn't go up and down hills. They could go straight. Daniel Boone and his friends have sense enough to follow the buffalo, as did the people who built the Lexington Pike, Dixie Highway, the railroad, 75. Because it's on a ridge. Cherry Grove, aka Hardscrabble. I'm guessing there's a bunch of you that have shopped at the store down on Pike Street in Covington called Hills. Sold seeds. Yeah. Want to see his first store? That's it.
Oh my.
If you leave Williamstown and going south on 25, you get down to a point where the road forks. One goes to Lexington, one goes to Cynthiana. If you know the area, you know there's a big silver teepee there.
Yes.
Yeah. No, a lot of people don't know the fork, they all know the silver teepee. That is a town that used to be called Hardscrabble, but now it's more likely called Cherry Grove. Favorite picture time. There's Hill Store. There's a turkey, there's a horse. There's US 25.
Isn't that funny?
I can't leave Crittenden without talking about that man. That's Curtis Lloyd. And if you're the Boone County Historical Society, you ought to know who John Uri Lloyd is. This is his brother. John Uri, in the event you don't know, was a pharmacist, a scientist, an author. He's the man that wrote Stringtown on the Pike. Florence, Kentucky was never, ever named Stringtown. Just FYI, it's a fictional name. Lloyd gave it. There is a real Stringtown down the river the other side of Constance. He was one of three brothers, and John Uri was the one that created medicine. He was a pharmacist. And he had an older brother, Nelson Ashley, who was the businessman in the family. Nelson Ashley would monetize what John Uri created and invented. It was a great partnership. One created stuff, one sold stuff. They were both very good at what they did. They made a ton of money. And you're sitting there wondering what Curtis did. Curtis spent it. Now, let me rush in to say he did not spend money lavishly or wildly in a life of hedonism, regardless of what that picture indicates. He traveled the world. I do not have, and I could have had, and I didn't scan it, a picture of Curtis camped on Samoa, gathering plant samples to take back to John Uri. It takes 4 days now to get to Samoa. I can't imagine what it took 120 years ago. He also bought rare books. And when I say rare, I'm not talking about, printed in England in 1800, 1700, although he did. I'm talking about hand-drawn, hand-colored books made by monks in Italy around the, 1400s, 1500s. We're talking rare books here. If you want to see them, they're all over in the Lloyd Library in Cincinnati, which the Lloyd brothers established. When he died, Curtis left 320 acres to Grant County. It's a park these days. If you go south of Crittenden, the first road to the left, you'll see it. You can't miss it. And he left them those 320 acres and said, you can do anything you want to with them, except for these 20 acres. You can't do anything with those. There's never been an axe in them, and you don't start. And they haven't. However, he did put his tombstone there. Curtis Lloyd, born in 1859, died 60 or more years later. Afterwards, the exact number of years and months and days that he lived, nobody knows and nobody cares. Curtis Lloyd, the other side. Monument was erected in 1922 by himself, for himself, during his life, to gratify his own vanity. He was known to go into Crittenden with a handful of change and throw it in the air just to see the kids scramble for it. And he offered to buy Crittenden a high school. You've heard Lloyd Memorial High School? That's John Uri. You've heard Crittenden Lloyd? No, the school board wouldn't take his money because he was an atheist. Curtis Lloyd. I admire all three Lloyd brothers, but I got a soft spot for Curtis. Gallatin County. Two big events in Gallatin County in their history. One would be Christmas Day, 1959, when that building blew up. It blew up and you could feel the explosion all over Gallatin County, and even reports from Erlanger and Williamstown. The man that owned it, Jack Smith, died in the explosion. They think they know got a cashmere sweater for Christmas that morning, and they think maybe static electricity when he went into the building. All the houses around it were seriously damaged. Windows were blown out across the river, and the news coverage was international because what happens on Christmas Day. Anyway, lots of pictures from Warsaw. The other thing in Gallatin County that you may or may not be aware of is the story of Hub Ferguson. There are two known pictures of Hub Ferguson. That's one, that's the other one. He was a sheriff of Gallatin County, and one day in 1954, he was found dead in Eagle Creek in Sparta. Who did it? Nobody knows. Why? Nobody knows. Carroll County, I got two favorite pictures for you. Let's see if I can find them. I'm going to take better notes. Main Street, it says here. There, that one. You're on Main Street. Main Street, if you go through Kelton, you're on Highland Avenue. The street behind the courthouse is Main Street. And this is behind the courthouse. And all these people are gathered for an occasion I do not know. But what's that guy doing? It's been suggested to me that's a tightrope walker. Maybe. Can you see? Another mystery. Let's go down to the 1907 flood. That when I'm on Main Street, I'm a little further down than we were before, but we're still looking towards Louisville. And this is either the 1907 or the 1913 flood. They're kind of hard to tell apart. Because they're both big floods and they're both from the same, there's nothing about the card itself that dates it. I want you to look back here, where that looks like maybe a human finger, and there's some round letters up there. Anybody want to take a guess? That's the Island Queen. Parked in a park in Carrollton. Not on the river, in the park. Remember that house floating down the river in Milton? The Island Queen doesn't want any part of that. So she gets out of the current. If you go to that location today in Carrollton, you can literally drive underneath where the Island Queen was parked. A favorite picture from Bracken County, from the little town of Milford. Been to Milford, Gary? I'm gonna get one on you again. Gary's betting 100 on me. It's a painting, it's the Licking River, it's the old mill. Can't tell you more about that, I just like it. Milford, if you're on the way from Falmouth to Maysville, the back way, there's no other way except the back way, you'll go through Milford. Not as dried up as a lot of little towns. I'm going to show you. That one. In which we see a number of men milling about, and we see 2 loaded wagons, maybe 3. On the back, it's postmarked in 1908, and it says those 2 loads of tobacco you see are cars of the one that came here causing a riot. Tobacco causing a riot that almost got turned over in the river in 1908 tells me that is an image from the tobacco wars of Kentucky from 1906 to 1909, 10 or so. There was a man named James B. Duke who owned the American Tobacco Company and began to buy all the other little tobacco companies until it reached the point he owned all, or virtually all, of the tobacco companies. And as a result, he offered people less and less for their crop until it got to the point that you could sell it to him or eat it. And if you sold it to him, you weren't going to get enough to cover your expenses. Farmers rebelled. It started in the far western part of the state, where they grow something called black tobacco. It's black like bluegrass, it's blue. It's kind of green, but it's a dark green. And they decided not to raise any tobacco in 1908. One Kentucky senator introduced a law that says if you grow tobacco in 1908, we're going to charge you $50 tax per acre. That didn't pass, but that's the sentiment that was abroad in the land. Farmers that did not grow exerted a lot of pressure on those that did. When I say pressure, I'm talking about shootings, I'm talking about salted tobacco beds, I'm talking about graves being dug and left empty. It's a curious era in Northern Kentucky history, and Kentucky history for that matter, and Tennessee. You can read more about it on a page I got. In Boone County, there were incidents in Verona, Walton, Richwood, Beaver Lick, and Hathaway. Everybody remember Hathaway? The Night Riders. Hey, let's go to Boone County. Speaking of Beaver Lick, what was I going to show you Beaver Lick? Oh, I know. Little country store in Beaver Lick. I don't know if that one's still there or not. In, what are you doing this? In Rabbit Hash, you can't talk about northern Kentucky and Boone County without talking about Rabbit Hash. There is a question of how Rabbit Hash got its name. I have 9 different explanations. For the record, I don't believe any of them. The other thing I have in Boone County, and I have this in all the counties, but I'm only going to show it to you in Boone, are county formation maps. That is, Boone County was established in 1798 from Campbell County. There's the map as it was formed. There's the act of the legislature that formed it. And you can see they did a little bit of Gallatin there. Gallatin took a little bit back in 1837, and a little bit right there. The adjustment with Grant County. So we have county formation maps on every county. We have some other random maps. There's one from 1804 of all things. There's one showing Boone County as being the center of the population of the United States. Some of you may have been to the overlook at the airport. There used to be a historical marker there. I don't know if there still is one there.
Still there.
Still there?
Yeah.
Okay. There's the Lake Atlases from the 1880s. I've got some rivers area maps from 1911. It will take you not to my site, but to another site where you can enlarge it. And you can see there's Petersburg, and if you go down the river, you can see, yeah, there's Bequeathes, there's Loops, there's Riley's. Pretty detailed for that old. I have topo maps from the 50s. Some different roads in the 50s than we're used to today. If I had to pick a town in northern Kentucky that had the most history for its size, I would pick Washington down in Mason County. Number 2, I'm going to Richwood. I'll tell you why. Stuff happens in Richwood. There's the Richwood Presbyterian Church, which has a long and illustrative history. There's the Battle of Snow's Pond, just south of Richwood, annotated in some detail by Jack Rouse. There's the failure of the Richwood Bank. The bank was run by one of the director's sons who lived in Walton. And he went to get a haircut one day, and he got his haircut that cost a dime, and he laid down a quarter, and he walked out the door. And in the day, he'd never been sitting around in the barber shop, because that's what you did. And they all looked at that quarter, and tongues wagged, and rumors flew, and rumors were right. The young man seemed to have a difference in telling his own money from the bank's money. You can read all about it. Richwood, just north of Richwood, used to be a thing called the Barron House, just north of Frogtown Road on the west, where a young lady named Jane, Kiger, Joan Kiger, shot and killed her family one night. Reloaded to shot and kill all her members of her family. You can read about the Kiger murders. And last but not least, we have Forest Home. Forest Home, you will remember, is the home of one Margaret Garner. I assume everybody knows Margaret Garner. If you don't, find out. Margaret is not the only person that committed murder to keep from going back to slavery. And there are some other instances, just globally instances. I told you I'd go back to that, one of those cards, I forget which one. Doesn't matter, there's lots of them. Let's go to Hebrew. Remember I talked about that font earlier? Okay. There are essentially 5 different, I'm going to tell you more than you want to know about postcards. There's 5 kinds. There are people out there that collect them. And they refer to classics. The classics are the ones, are the good ones. They're from like 1906 to World War I. They started in 1906 because before 1906, the backs were undivided. You couldn't write a message. 1906, they put a line on it. The post office said, it's okay to put a line on it. So they did, and they began selling millions of the things. The way you did it was you shipped them to Germany to be lithographed, and Germany sent them back. World War I pretty much took care of the lithographing industry in Germany. So after that, you get postcards with little white borders on them. Collectors collect those. After the white borders, which is pretty much from World War I and World War II, you get a type of postcard they call a linen. Postcard collectors kind of spit when they say linen. The resolution is horrible, and nobody likes the things. After that, you get like 1955 forward, and you get what they call chromes. This is a 5th type. This is what they call a real photo postcard. They call it a real photo because it really is a photo. You took your negative to your drugstore or the general store, whoever develops your film, and instead of developing it on regular paper, they develop it on postcard stock. So, you know, if you want to send 6 pictures of your house to your friends in Ottawa, the guy at the store can fix you up. You put a stamp in the stamp box and send it off. And it's got a picture on the other side. Some enterprising guys, like this guy in Boone County, I think in Boone County, went out on the street and took pictures. Because you could do that. If you didn't want to have 200 pictures of a scene, and you didn't want to go to the trouble of sending it to Germany to get lithographed, you could develop pictures of a dozen, 2 dozen. It makes them rare. Because there aren't as many. It makes them, it's the one collectors prize the most. But see that font? If you developed pictures on a real photo postcard stock, you did it because you bought a kit. And the kit would come with a pencil. And you could write on the negative what it was. Write on the negative. You can't write normal style on a negative. You have to write backwards on a negative. Helpful hint, if you're right-handed, try it with your left hand, it's a lot easier. I learned that in high school. Real photo postcards typically look like that. I mean, he tried. I don't think I could do any better. But whoever's doing it in Boone County really knows their stuff. I don't know who made them. I can tell you they exist for Bromley, and Hebron, and Limerberg, and Constance. I've not seen any from Burlington. Somebody in Boone County, 100 years ago, was in the postcard producing business, and they were doing a terrific job. Nobody at the next meeting is going to tell you who it was. Or maybe not. Anyway, that's my website. There's 20,000 pictures out there. I could do this whole hour again and show you all different stuff. I'm not going to. I'm quitting. If you got any questions, I'm happy to take it. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any pictures of Dover in Mason County?
Absolutely. You want tornado scenes or regular scenes?
Just regular scenes.
How about an aerial view?
I've actually seen that before. Yeah, it's at the corner of Market and Lucretia. Yeah.
Dover, Kentucky is where they had problems with chickens eating the road.
It does.
I can't make this stuff up. They were using shells, mussel shells out of the river. And apparently chickens need grit in their diet. But they paved the road with the leftover mussel shells, and then chickens were eating the grit out of the roads. Dover's where they had problems with chickens eating the roads. I don't make this stuff up. I couldn't make that up. Other questions?
Question, can you go back to Owen County and look when you said Lusby's Mill? Is there a picture of the actual mill itself?
Certainly is the answer to your question. How about that one?
And it was owned by the Lusbys, correct?
I'm not going to say for sure, I don't know. Covered Bridge. Charles Gaines was owner of Lusby Mills. So business sells the cotton. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It may say on my site, and I just don't know. Anybody else?
I have a general question. How did you start this website? What was the prompt?
My website is out there 2 months before Google. I'm older than Google. They had a better business plan. I wanted to have a website. It was in the 1990s. The website was new. The internet was new. And lots of people were putting up personal internet pages. And most of the pages were, here's my wife, here's my dog, here's my kid, here's a link to the weather. Isn't my page great? Well, I wasn't going to do that. I thought that was stupid. So I wanted to have a website, but I needed content. And it was about that time I was going through some of my grandmother's stuff. And my grandmother saved some interesting stuff, among which were some old postcards. And I thought, hey, I could take the one she's got from Boone and Gallatin and Carroll. And I could go to the antique mall and buy a few from Covington and Newport. And I've got a web page. Yeah, they kind of got out of control.
I like it. So do you spend,
2 days a week.
okay, 2 days a week, that answers my question. That's
Tuesday-
a lot of content for 2 days a week.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You set a schedule for yourself to keep it under control. Is that the thinking?
I set a schedule myself because I'm retired and I like the
You
schedule.
like to have a schedule, guys.
Yeah, I do woodworking on Monday and Wednesday. I do website on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Fridays, I do whatever I please. And then I take the weekend off.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Great.
I think it's time for business meeting.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.